is March 28th. Today is Thursday. It is 10 a.m. Pacific time, 12:03 p.m. here in Central Time in Texas, and we are joining you live from the Tech Speakers video room. This is the March 2019 monthly call notes. Let me make the template that we use says January, so I updated that in the notes document. This is the March monthly Tech Speakers call, and we're delighted everyone can join us. All of our existing tech speakers, thank you so much for tuning in today. Also, for all of our brand new tech speakers that just completed their training sessions with their groups and participated in the onboarding administrative session, thank you so much. We're absolutely delighted to have the training portion behind you now. Emails have gone out, and we are most excited to be welcoming you to the crew. So everyone tuning in for the first time as an official Mozilla tech speaker, congratulations. Thank you so much. We're delighted that you could be here with us. As a reminder to everyone live on the call who'll be presenting, please do mute your microphone if you're not currently speaking. We've got some helpful links in the documents. Be sure to check those out. And we also, for all of our new tech speakers, shortly below the top section of the document, we have a heading called Roll Call. This is something that we do on all of our monthly calls. It lets us know who's tuning in and joining. And we also try to ask a fun little question or say a little something about ourselves. It varies from month to month. It might be about your favorite flavor of ice cream, your favorite technology to present about. This week, our question is, if you could uninvent one thing, what would you uninvent? I see we got some good feedback already. One person doesn't like selfie sticks very much, and I would be inclined to agree. That's Dewanchi. Perfect. So without further ado, we can move into updates from our staff call. Many times on our monthly call, we feature a special guest. Today, we don't have a special guest, but rather instead, our special guests are all of the brand new tech speakers who are joining us for the first time. So we're very excited. After we give our staff updates, we'll be hearing updates from some of our existing tech speakers. I would just also like to ask all of our tech speakers who will be presenting at the end of the call today to introduce themselves, maybe say how long they've been with the Tech Speakers program, and maybe say just one or two lines about what you enjoy, the sort of technologies that you're passionate about. This way it'll help to introduce everybody to our new members and help for our new members to get an idea of our faces, our names, and the things that we're passionate about. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the call. The first update is just a very quick one. Yaniv and I will both be out of the office tomorrow. That's March 29th, Friday. I'll be taking PTO, and Yaniv will be out of the office, I believe, traveling. So if you have any questions that take place tomorrow or any emergencies that pop up, I'd like to suggest that you reach out to Flocky or Jessica Rose, and they will be more than happy to assist you. Also, if you'll be requesting any travel and you need your travel to be approved before the weekend, be sure to go ahead and submit those Agencia requests today. And Yaniv and myself will have an opportunity to take a look, review, and get those approved before we head out for PTO tomorrow. Also keep in mind that because of the Boeing situation, some flights have been changed. We've been working in the background to help get all the tech speakers back on track if your flights were affected by this development. But if we're unavailable and you need assistance and you can't reach a tech speaker staff member, then just as a reminder, all tech speakers have the ability to reach out to Agencia directly and speak with their customer service team. Their customer service team is standing by. They're very aware of the Boeing situation, and they've been absolutely wonderful with helping to get all tech speakers back on track if their travel has been affected by this. So as a reminder, if you have any travel emergencies that pop up over the weekend and the staff is unavailable, please reach out to Agencia directly. That's wonderful. Great. I'm going to skip over the next update because Yaniv will be delivering that. I'd like to give him the opportunity. And I'll speak next about the presentation remotes. So we shared about the Logitech R800 presentation remotes that we're sending out to all tech speakers who were super active in 2018. First thing I want to update you on is a small delay. Because we have so many tech speakers in Asia and Europe, we actually sourced a large majority of these remotes to be delivered to our London office instead of the United States. We did this to save a ton of money on shipping. Unfortunately, our provider, our supplier in Europe had an issue getting the number of units that we needed. So what we had to do is we had to cancel that request, reach out to our supplier in the United States, place a larger order, and then have those units delivered to San Francisco and then forwarded to the London office. So we do apologize for this delay, but we want to let you know that these are now outbound to tech speakers. If you live in Asia or Europe, then you most likely already have a confirmation email in your inbox telling you about tracking information. Some tech speakers have already received their remotes. I believe Shrusika was one of these. She may have stopped by the London office directly. Also, if you are in London, and Andre, I'm speaking to you directly. If you are in London and you want to stop by the office to pick up your remote, you may do so at this time. That's great. And if you're located in the United States, Latin America, or South America, and you haven't received an email update about your tracking notification already, go ahead and check your inbox. You may have received that. Those units are currently sitting with our shipping department in the San Francisco office, and they are scheduled to be outbound by the end of the week if they're not already on their way to you. So great. Also, just to let you know that, oh, actually, Yaniz will be sharing that update as well. He has a few slides about the presentation remote, so I'll let Yaniz tell you about this next little point here in a second. Great. Another cool, exciting development that I've just highlighted in the notes document is the WebXR messaging guidelines. Messaging guidelines are typically 1 to 2 page documents that we, as part of the Tech Speakers program, provide to tech speakers. And they give an overview of the preferred messaging when you're talking about a given technology. It also contains the latest information about what Mozilla's been working on in relation to the technology. We started this a couple of months back. Our first one was in December and went live in January. That was our WebAssembly messaging guidelines, which we provided out to tech speakers. So if you're interested in speaking about WebAssembly, we have that document available in messaging guidelines as well. And we've just added a new one to our offering as well. That's WebXR. Josh Marinacci, who works directly with the evangelism and web mixed realities team, was kind enough to put this document together. So I'd like to give a big shout out to Mozilla staff member Josh Marinacci for helping us to get this together, verifying all the information and sharing it with that team. So thank you, Josh. Also, I want to tell you about, we'll be planning on another one-page messaging guideline coming up here shortly. The next one that we'd like to introduce is another popular topic that tech speakers like to speak about. So we hope to be able to introduce a Rust messaging guideline next. So stay tuned for that, and we hope to be able to deliver you an update on the Rust guideline on the next monthly call. Next, that I'll highlight in the document right now is our new tech speaker onboarding update. Many of the tech speakers have asked about links to the slides. Now that we've completed all 3 of the administrative onboarding sessions, I'm more than happy to share those slides out with everyone who's participated. A link to those slides can be found here in the notes document, and we can provide that, and we'll also be uploading this to the tech speakers asset repo, so you'll be able to take a look at those whenever you need. Also, if you're a new tech speaker and you participated in Lab 6, then official emails were sent out this morning welcoming you officially to the program, giving you a tangible document that you can point to and say, this is my official acceptance letter is great, so you now have that. We currently have 44 tech speakers who were welcomed aboard today. If you did not receive this email, then most likely you're within this group of about 5 newbies that still need to complete Lab 6. I've noticed that 1 or 2 of our tech speakers have already reached out and explained that they were unable to tune in to Lab 6. So we'll be replying to your emails after this call and letting you know about how you can view that live recording, answer 1 or 2 questions to make sure that we understood the material, and then we'll get you caught up to everybody else that was just onboarded. Great. Do take a look at that official email that was sent out this morning, because in addition to being your official welcoming email, it contains 2 important links. That is the registration form link for all new tech speakers, and also the link that we need to request your new tech speaker t-shirt. So do check those out and make sure to fill out those 2 forms. If you have any questions about the email that you received, please feel free to ping us on Telegram or reach out to us at tsstaff@mozilla.com about any of your questions or concerns. Also, just to point out, at the bottom of the document here, we have a section for questions. During the call, if you think of anything that you'd like addressed, we will be circling to the Q&A section at the end of the call and answering any questions that appear in the document. So feel free to add your questions there and we'll answer them at the end of the call today. Great. Next up, Yaniv will be giving us some updates about what he's been working on and sharing a cool announcement as well.
Yes, the first thing I want to share with you, and you already saw a little bit of picture. Where is it? Sorry, I lost my screen. Here's it. Is the presentation clickers. Here. So the presentation clickers, the one coming out of Europe, have been packed yesterday. So it was a whole table with notes, with stickers and all these things. And we had to put all this into the envelope and the right addresses and so on. And I'm really excited to be able to say to you that most of these 40, 50 packages has been sent this afternoon. So you should get them in about a week. We still have 4 or 5 to handle because there was some strangeness in some addresses given. So don't worry, we will reach out to some of you to have precision about the addresses that you gave to us. That's life. But everything will be gone from the office latest on Monday. So I'm really excited to see all this going well together. It has been quite an adventure, as Michael said. Not only to have the different clickers at the right place, but to have the stickers, the right dimension and everything. So I'm really excited that this is finished or almost finished. And I'm happy to see all of you using these clickers in the future. The second element that I want to speak about is a really, really big and exciting announcement. So like last year, we will do a tech speaker meetup. As the tech speaker group is growing, this year we will do, in fact, 2 meetups, one in Europe and one in Asia. This will allow us to save a little bit of cost because it's not that easy to fly and everybody from all over the world to Paris like last year. So this year it will be a different city, but we are still looking in all the details. One thing that is important, you will not be able to choose the location. We will attribute a location to you depending of the costs, of the availability or easiness of having a visa to come to the location, but also depending also on some diversity. We don't want to have everybody from the same country inside one location and nobody of this continent in the other location. So that's one thing that we will take into account, and we will just invite you at one of the 2 events. We are currently working first on the European event, and I went to visit some venues, some hotels, and some restaurants earlier this week. So this is in a good shape. We are about to start doing the contracts. We are not yet telling you where it is. It will be a bit of a surprise a little bit later this year because it can change a little bit. But what is important is for the European one, it will be September 28th and 29th. It's a weekend with the travel days the day before and the day after. And it will be in Europe. So please, if you are based in Europe, Eastern Northern America, South America, and the Middle East or Northern Africa, please book these dates because you will be very likely invited at these places. Like the previous years, places are limited, so we will invite the most active and the most influential tech speakers. The precise criteria are not yet fixed, so this will come later this year. Just for new tech speaker, we will take, of course, into account that you joined the program only end of March, and we will take this into consideration because, of course, you have less time to match the criteria, but we will take this into consideration. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Yaniv, for those updates. We are very excited about the meetup. I want to let all the tech speakers know that we very much reviewed the feedback that you provided on last year's meetup in Paris, and we've been working very hard to set up this year's activities in a way that takes all of that feedback into consideration. Some of you expressed that there were, it was challenging to listen to so many different people present. So we're breaking it apart, especially as our program continues to grow and add new tech speakers. We want to have even more people at the meetup this year. So by breaking it apart into 2 events, it gives us the opportunity to not only come together, meet, and spend time with one another, but also have regain that element of intimacy where we have attention from coaches and the ability to ask the questions that we need to without being overwhelmed by the number of people at the event. Also, your feedback about the availability of vegan and vegetarian restaurants is something that we took very much into consideration. So Yanni's traveling to the sites that we're looking at, scoping out restaurants, checking to make sure that we have vegan, vegetarian, halal options and other kosher options, for example, available to everyone is something that we took very seriously. Also, we made sure that our hotel had adequate facilities. A few people had bumped their heads at the last hotel we were on, so we checked to make sure that the ceilings weren't too low. We took all of that feedback into consideration, and we are very excited. We think we've chosen 2 very cool locations. We're keeping them a little bit close to the chest right now and not revealing the locations because we're still finalizing everything. But please stay tuned. We'll have more announcements here shortly. We'll be communicating the requirements as soon as those are solidified. And again, we're super excited, and we think that you'll be very excited too once everything is solidified and shared. Great. Well, next up, I believe we'll be hearing from Flocky, who'll be delivering his 5-minute cool tech speaker updates.
Hello, can you hear me all right? Perfect. Yeah, so if you scroll a bit down in the document, I started adding a few links because I realized that 5 minutes might not going to be enough for all of these. So it's customary that I or Jean-Yves or somebody presents a few-minute tech updates from what happened in the past few weeks since we had our previous call. But since this time you're joined by a lot of people who are just kind of getting familiarized with Mozilla's technologies and all of Mozilla's offerings, I thought we're going to take a little bit of a different approach, and instead of talking about what's new in Mozilla, maybe think about what could be the things that you might be interested in diving in more as you try to expand on your open web muscles and trying to figure out what are the things that you might want to incorporate from Mozilla's offering or the open web technology space that Mozilla cares about. So I decided to start with ML, which is short for machine learning in this case, because I heard that some of you are really interested in the whole artificial intelligence and machine learning space, and very few people know that actually Mozilla has quite a bit of stake in this. So I would like to point you to the Iodide project, which is a very recent announced project that basically makes it possible to do data science and science in the browser thanks to WebAssembly. So I linked to the blog post that explains to you more about if you're interested in doing, if you have been coming from a Python background or a data science background, this would be something that you definitely should check out. Also, if you know what a Jupyter notebook is and love them, then definitely check out Iodide. The other thing I wanted to point out is the deep speech and common voice effort. So Mozilla has been trying to come up with ways to kind of democratize speech and speech APIs. So most of you who have been using like speech APIs and speech detection or text-to-speech or speech-to-text engines have usually probably been using like some of the big vendors like IBM or Azure or Google's like APIs to do this. And Mozilla have decided to try and pull some muscle and try and work out ways to make these services like speech services decoupled from only big vendors. There is a lot of challenges to this. First of all, the detection or like the machine learning models required for this So this is something that the Deep Speech project is trying to tackle. But also there's a common voice aspect. The common voice project is actually trying to collect the required speech voice patterns and speech data that is required to train your models on to be able to get better at detection, which is obviously much easier for big companies who ingest all your data into your cloud services, like your phone calls and whatever's. But Mozilla has taken a different approach of donated voices. So it's also a great possibility for community contributions. The other thing, a lot of people are interested in IoT, and Mozilla also has some really cool open source projects in this space as well. I don't want to go too deep into this. I also gonna add a few more extra links in this, but I wanted to mention Project Things, which is Mozilla's offering or experiment trying to decouple your smart devices from big vendors. So as you might have some smart bulbs or like smart home devices at home, you know that most of these come with applications that you have to install your phone, and like they're all locked into their own silos, and Mozilla is trying to provide you an open source alternative to not just give access to these devices, but also secure your smart devices at home. So I'll be dropping a few more links about this, but if you're interested in developing IoT solutions or have been developing IoT solutions, this is a great opportunity for contribution. Most of you are going to be interacting with developers and going to conferences. You're going to be talking to a lot of developers. So I wanted to point out a few things that people usually don't know about Mozilla or Firefox. So one of the interesting things about Firefox is the Firefox developer tools, that is the developer console that is built into the Firefox browser, is actually using HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So it is built on and by web technologies. It uses React, and it actually has its own GitHub repository, which is very welcoming to contributions. So if somebody really wants to contribute to Firefox, but they don't know how to code Rust or C++, this is a great way to point them to a contribution possibility. There are people out there very welcoming, and I'm going to mention a few really cool stuff that just came out of this exact DevTools effort. Just as a side note, I already mentioned WebAssembly just a moment before. And WebAssembly actually has its place in this JavaScript, CSS, and HTML DevTools that are linked to, because actually it also contains Rust compiled to WebAssembly to make the parsing of certain components of the DevTools faster. So it has feature packed with all the technologies, mouth-watering technologies you would want to talk to developers. I'm actually linking on the second to some of the developer tools that came out recently from the Firefox developer tools. I'm linking to Shenhui Jing's amazing blog post that kind of pulls together, how could you use the developer tools that were recently developed in real life use cases to make sure that your layouts are to help you with the latest technologies, Grid and Flexbox, to help you create the layouts and debug the layouts that you really wanted to create, to provide you more insight into into the code that you are writing as a developer. So Firefox has a grid inspector, a Flexbox inspector, a brand new font inspector that helps you with web fonts, and I also link to a separate article that's about a shape path editor that makes it much easier to do cutouts of objects on your web pages, to flow those things around those objects better. So we have a lot of developer offerings that a lot of people don't know about, or that don't get enough noise. And there is a section I marked as cutting edge. So if you want to get into something like that is more like research into the future, or like up and coming stuff that Mozilla is trying to pull off to kind of as an investment into your future, this is your place. I mentioned Servo, which is like the browser engine that Mozilla started working. It's a research browser engine that Mozilla started working on from scratch, building in the Rust programming language. That is kind of supporting and is like a baseline of a lot of the things that Firefox currently can offer, including the Firefox Quantum. Some components of this brand new browser engine is included in Firefox Quantum and the Firefox Reality browser, which I'm going to mention in a moment. I already mentioned you that the DevTools actually contains some Rust and WebAssembly code. This is made possible by the Rust programming language having built-in support to generating a WebAssembly output for your code. That means you can program some low-level code in a low-level language, make it super fast, and actually running in the browser or like any browser context such as the Firefox developer tools. And this is really nifty because it makes a lot of things possible. I linked to Nick Fitzgerald's blog post, which talks about speed without wizardry, how you don't have to know the JavaScript engines in ords to be able to produce fast code using WebAssembly and Rust. But there is also one more thing in the cutting edge portion, the AV1 video codec, which I also linked to an explainer page. The AV1 video codec is actually a fully open source, royalty-free codec that is actually built on the collaboration of Google, Netflix, Amazon, and whoever is in this place. Even Apple is contributing to it. And Mozilla hopes it to be a future standard, replacing a lot of the royalty encumbered video codecs. It also has a potential for 35% better compression. So it's really an industry-wide effort to make video technology better for the future. And I left it to last because this is what most people are super freaked about, is the mixed reality effort that Mozilla is pushing. So mixed reality encompasses artificial and virtual reality and mixed reality and all of this the spectrum into this one word or one phrase. And Mozilla has a lot of has been doing pushing a lot of effort trying to make the web a first-class citizen for the mixed reality effort. So you will see Mozilla has a mixed reality team. Michael already talked about how we can provide you with some information on this, and if you want to talk about mixed reality. But also Mozilla has recently released a browser for standalone VR devices that you could use a Firefox Reality browser you could use on these standalone devices to run VR content on these devices or mixed reality content on these devices. Mozilla also has a hubs and a spoke device, hubs and spoke projects. Mozilla Hubs is a social connected VR experience. I'll drop in a link in a moment. And Spoke is actually a utility that makes it easier to create web-enabled 3D graphics. And just as a parting thought, I'll point you to something that is probably well known by probably all of you. MDN has been traditionally the web documentation, the most popular and most comprehensive web documentation that was traditionally maintained by Mozilla, and there's still a huge effort going into it coming from Mozilla and editors in Mozilla. And engineers by Mozilla, but it actually has been becoming a similarly cross-vendor effort. So the PAB, as the Product Advisory Board for short, MDN has now a Product Advisory Board comprising people from Microsoft, from Google, and from all industry vendors in the web space and standard space to kind of direct or help with the direction of MDN. And like MDN has always been a wiki, but there is more concentrated effort into contributing articles and documentations from a variety of web-enabled and web-adjacent like technologies, to make MDN an even more comprehensive source of information. And as also a Mozilla internal effort is the browser compatibility data, which has been a humongous effort. You can ask Janive about this, to pull all the textual information on compatible browser compatibility across various devices and browsers and even platforms such as Node.js out of the wiki markup of MDN and expose them as a machine readable format that now powers stuff like Visual Studio codes, tips and tooltips, and can be embedded in a variety of software. So Mozilla also maintains this machine readable format for cross-platform and cross-browser compatibility for web standards, which you should definitely check out. So yeah, I hope I could introduce you to some of the technologies or some of the stuff that Mozilla has been working on that you had never heard. And I hope if you ever have questions with these, feel free to reach out to either the Tech Speaker staff or just ask about these on Telegram. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Flocky, so much for introducing us to those concepts. If I could ask a quick follow-up question, I see maybe 3 people in the background behind you. Could you give us a quick introduction to those people that are joining you today?
Absolutely. Sorry. Yeah, that is a very. Actually, there are 4 people behind me, but you're correct. So on my left, this guy with the Firefoxy tail is Florian Gilcher. And on my right is Jan-Erik Redige. They are both tech speakers. And they are co-organizers of the RustFest conference with me. We are together here in South America for a Rust conference, and that cheeky guy behind me is Bela the Fox. So we are all here to join you for the Tech Speaker meetup.
Great, and we'll be
Paul.
seeing more of Jan, Eric, Florian, and Bea the Fox as well. Is that right?
Hopefully. You
Bea
bet.
the Fox is a bit of a mascot. Flocky loves to travel with Bea and constantly showing up in photos, photobombing people. It's great. So familiarizing yourself with Bea because you'll be seeing more of her along the way. Thank you for giving us his introductions, Flocky. Great. Well, next up, before we jump over to the Q&A portion, during the monthly calls, we like to hear from some of our tech speakers who have opted to give us updates on what they've been working on, some of their recent engagements, activities, and things they have planned. First up, we'll be hearing from Juliana, who joins us today from Mexico. She'll be updating on her experience at Women Dev Summit. Hey, Yuli, you may still be muted.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Perfect.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, this month I participated in 3 events, and 2 in Mexico and 1 in Brazil. So today I will talk about Brazil because the event was very interesting. The Women Dev Summit event is an event for women developers organized by some communities of Sao Paulo, like Rails Girls, PHP Women, Womakers Code, and other communities. And it's great. It's very small, maybe 150 people. And well, and my talk was about WebAssembly with JavaScript. And my talk was in English, I think this day, but this day the people in the organization told me, if you can I speak in English in Spanish, sorry. Y yo, oh, okay, perfect. But the people in the event don't understand very well English. So my talk was in English, Spanish, and a bit Portuguese. So I started my talk. Hi, my name is Julie. Vengo de Ciudad de México. Falar in WebAssembly. So I speak in three languages this day. I know other people. We talk in Portuguese, and the event the end and the event was great because other people understand me in Spanish, and I understand your Portuguese, and they understand the topic, and the topic is awesome for the date. So the event is very great. I don't.
Great, Yuli. Thank you for that update. I think there's an important message behind that, and that is the ability to adapt on the fly, even if that means changing the way you deliver your message or switching languages. The ability to adjust to speak Portuguese, Spanish, or English is amazing, and I really applaud you for making sure that your message was received by your audience, even if you did have to adjust your approach to do it. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it. And if you have any questions for Yuli, feel free to add those to the bottom of the document. Up next, we'll be hearing from tech speaker Elio, who'll be giving us two updates. And I will let him introduce and take it away.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks, Yuli, for kicking it off. Hi, I'm Elio. I'm actually part of the Tech Speakers program since the second cohort. You can see one screaming face in the Berlin photo there in the document. That's me when I still had short hair. I actually am not a developer, but I mostly do design. Nowadays, mostly UX, and I'm trying to get a bit more into accessibility. I wanted to talk today a bit more about not actually speaking related stuff, but some stuff which I think should be important to Mozilla, and we have been doing in the last weeks regarding design. And one of the things is that we are actually working. Some of my colleagues and me are working with EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, you might know, based in the US, on redesigning the HTTPS Everywhere extension. You might know the extension as an add-on for Firefox, and it's default by Tor browser. So it basically enforces HTTPS connections if there is one available for some website. We noticed that the extension had lack of usability, so a lot of people did not understand how to use it. And they were thinking that, okay, I have this installed now, I'm secure on the web now, and I don't need to care about anything else now. So this miseducation we wanted to tackle by redesigning the extension and also making sure that it's accessible. So right now we are doing a short survey, which we hope to send out next week on to some HTTPS Everywhere users, and to understand some problems, some usability problems, and hope that by the end of this summer we have redesigned the whole extension. And I must say that I'm pretty proud of this process, because we will impact a lot of users also who come from Tor browser, which shares the Firefox code base. So we're going to make the default experience for these users more delightful and more secure at the end of the day. In the document, you can find some links. So the way we work in this process is that we try to make our design process accessible and open. So as open source code, we do that on GitHub issues and other platforms which are open. So if you want to chime in the process, feel free to comment on the GitHub issue, and you can get involved very easily. Something else I wanted to share with you is also it's great to have Florian here as well, in Montevideo in Uruguay actually. And I had the pleasure to work with Florian and his company in Berlin on designing the experience for Oxidize conference. So Florian and his friends are organizing IoT embedded system Rust conference next month in April. And Florian approached me a few months ago whether I would like to help designing the visual identity and the experience. So right now it's almost ready, only a little bit of fine tuning. You can check out the website, which is pasted in the document. And if everything goes well, all the resources will be accessible for everyone to check out and learn from them, as is in the spirit of the Rust community as well. So seeing that Rust is an important component of Mozilla, I think it's very, very important to make the whole experience very, very user-friendly for people, so they don't get scared off by a lot of tech jargon, but making it in a more playful way as well. Same here. You have a GitHub issue with all the process. We did that in the open, so feel free to chime in there. And for any questions, ask me or in the GitHub issue. Thank you.
Great, Elio. Thank you for that update. And thank you, Flocky, for turning on the camera so that everybody could see Jan Eric and Florian in the background. It's great to get that context as Elio is giving the update about Oxidize. So thank you again, Elio. And if anyone has any questions for Elio, they can reach out via Telegram or add questions at the bottom of the document. And Elio is always happy to help out a fellow tech speaker. Up next, I believe we'll be hearing from Dewanshi. Yes, that is correct. She'll be updating on her recent Rust and Wasm session at Newify. So without further ado, I'll let Dewanshi take it away.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Okay, great. Hi guys, I hope you all are doing great. I'm Devanshi, and recently after a long time break, I gave my first talk as a tech speaker at Newify 2019. My talk was regarding WebAssembly and Rust. The event was great. This event is like a tech fest which happens every year in Symbiosis University. I recently started trying things out with WebAssembly, and then I started working on examples using Rust as well. Then for this talk, I actually started with the introduction part, and the approach I chose was to give people a reference from the time when JS was created, and we were still using, Java applets to interact with browser, and we still couldn't do it. So I gave like very pretty basic demos, one with C program and with like addition and subtraction in Rust and Wasm. The Rust one, for the Rust one, I followed the Rust and Wasm book. It's an amazing resource for learning. I learned with that book, but I found it a bit complicated for the people who are just getting introduced to WebAssembly. So what I'm doing is trying out this content of my talk in various events. I'm actually searching for the code snippets which are interesting, like 3D cubes or some kind of a game, because I feel addition, subtraction, and hello world programs are not that interesting for audience, and particularly for WebAssembly, where you actually want to show the performance differences. So in case someone has references, please let me know. I'm presenting the same talk at FOSS Meet in Pune, and then I'm going to present it in my office as well. I have added my slide deck in the notes. If you have any feedback, please feel free to share. Also, I'm going to push my demo code samples to GitHub. I'll share them once I update the repo. Yeah, thanks for listening to me. Have a great day.
Thank you, Dewanshi. Quick follow-up question. Thank you for providing the link to your notes. Would it be okay if we made a copy of your slide deck and added it to the tech speaker asset repo so other tech speakers could take a look?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Absolutely. And as Dewanshi mentioned at the beginning of her update, she's returning from a break where she was unable to be super actively engaged in tech speakers. This was a common question that popped up during the different onboarding sessions. What happens if I am unable to speak? Am I removed from the program? Absolutely not. We encourage you to communicate, and Dewanshi was an excellent example of this. She reached out to us and let us know that she wouldn't be able to engage with audiences for a little while. She took a break, handled her business, and things got back in order for her, and she kind of returned to the program, and now she's back active, and we're super happy to welcome her back into the fold and start to see her more during the calls and things like that. So thanks, Dewanshi, again.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Up next, Ender will be giving us an update on Warsaw IT Days. So I will yield the floor to Ender and let him take it away from here.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Andrzej Mazur. You can call me Ender. It will be easier. I'm with the TechSpeaker program since the very beginning, and I'm all into HTML5 games. And if there is a technology in which you can build games or not, I will probably try to do that. Quick shout out to all the new tech speakers. If you are building anything with games, game related, if you want to consult something, discuss, or just talk about games, please reach out to me. It will be awesome to talk about games. I wanted to give you a very quick update about Warsaw IT Days. It's a huge student-focused conference, conference/fair/festival. It's a quite a big event because it has like 20 plus different tracks and a few thousand participants. Sometimes this approach works, sometimes it's not working. With Warsaw IT Days, it works. We have organized a meetup in one of the tracks. I was expecting to have about 30 participants, and we ended up with a room for 100, and we had exactly people or even more on all three presentations. Mine about progressive web apps and board games, and two other presentations we had during the meetup. And we also had a small competition and a panel discussing different ways in which you can start having a job in the industry. And why am I telling you about this is that giving a talk to a student is really great and unique experience, because they are super passionate about all the things you are telling them. They are really curious about all the things, asking so many questions. It's really hard to keep up on with the next presentations, because there are so many people asking really cool questions, and we have so many interesting discussions. So I wanted to encourage you to participate in such events in your local communities, take part in this, talk with students, organize meetups and workshops and whatnot for students, because it's really a unique experience and something really rewarding. So go for it. Thank you.
Thank you for delivering that update, Ender. If you have any questions for Ender, please add them to the bottom of the document. And that is the last of our tech speaker updates that we'll be doing today. As a reminder, any tech speaker is always welcome to give an update during the monthly calls. If you're a new tech speaker and you'd like to speak, even if that's just to introduce yourself to the group, reach out to us. You can ping a tech speaker staff member, and we'll be happy to add you to the agenda. Additionally, before the calls, we typically make an announcement in the main tech speaker Telegram channel, letting people know that we are looking for updates from tech speakers, and that's another opportunity to raise your hand and nominate yourself to be included. So absolutely, feel free to join in to all of our new tech speakers next month. We have a couple of questions that came into the document. I'll just review them live on the call real quick before we adjourn. If we're a new tech speaker, what level of participation is enough for us to be invited to attend the meetup in September? We're still working on that precise number. In the past, it's varied between 3 and 4 events, just to give you a historical reference to gauge by. But as soon as we solidify what that looks like, we'll be communicating it out to all of the tech speakers. And of course, if you're a new tech speaker, as we mentioned earlier, we'll be kind of prorating it or adjusting that expectation to take into consideration the fact that you're recently joining the program. Another question that's come in. I gave a talk about WebAssembly at a conference last weekend and introduced myself as a tech speaker. Should I still submit the event feedback form? And that question comes from Milika. Yes, the answer to this is that we would greatly appreciate it if you would fill out an event feedback form. Also, it's good to help you familiarize yourself with the questions that are asked in the form so that next time you go out to an event, you'll be mindful of the sort of questions that we ask for. You can take mental notes as you kind of experience the event and remember, oh, I want to make sure to mention this on the form later on. So absolutely, we encourage that, and we would appreciate it if you could. Great. I see some notes being added. Perfect, but that's not a question. So wonderful. We can end the call here, and I want to thank everyone again for joining. If you have any questions and you're a new tech speaker, we're available on Telegram. We're available on email. Yaniv and I will be out of the office tomorrow as a reminder. But otherwise, welcome aboard. Thank you, everyone. Cheers.